There is an almost imperceptible moment when the veil between worlds thins. It is the moment when the body seems to prepare to leave, but the soul awakens. Many call this phenomenon the deathbed rally. Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet, spoke of it as a kind of blessing, a last gift from the spirit to the body before it frees itself. And yet, for those observing from the outside, it is a disconcerting mystery. The patient who was weak suddenly speaks clearly, the dull gaze brightens again, and there is a different silence in the air, as if time breathes slowly. What is this rally? Why does it come when everything seems to be ending? Cayce said that the soul knows when the crossing is near. The body, made of matter and weariness, follows its physical laws. But the spirit, that field of consciousness that does not fade, begins to gently withdraw, like the tide receding its waters before leaving the space clean. In this movement of withdrawal, there is a moment of balance. The spirit, still present, but already free from the weight of pain, illuminates the mind with an almost divine serenity. It is as if, for a few hours, the person returns to being only soul within the body, and not body trying to be soul. Many family members interpret this rally as a sign of healing. The patient smiles, asks for food, talks about beautiful things, expresses gratitude, or simply finds peace. But this peace is different. It is not the peace of one who conquers illness, but of one who finally understands that there is nothing to conquer. It is the silent recognition that life is not lost. It merely changes form. Cayce said that at this moment, the spirit catches a glimpse of the home to which it is returning. That is why the countenance changes. Fear, once so present, dissolves, and in its place appears a kind of glow in the eyes, a glow of recognition. Think about it. Every journey has a return, and when the soul senses the return, it organizes itself. There is a silent wisdom in the process of dying. Nature never rushes. Just as the sunset does not happen all at once, the disconnection between body and soul is also gradual. The deathbed rally is the twilight of physical life, the moment when the day seems to reignite in more vibrant colors before definitively retreating into night. It is the instant when the spirit bids farewell to its dwelling with gratitude. Many nurses and caregivers report the same phenomenon, even without knowing Cayce or spiritual texts. Patients who spend days unconscious suddenly open their eyes, recognize loved ones, say something like, "I'm ready," or "I see a beautiful light." Shortly after, they depart serenely. It is as if an invisible intelligence guides the process, ensuring that the farewell happens with dignity. The body, relieved, seems to cooperate. The soul, liberated, seems to smile. Perhaps the most fascinating thing is that this rally is not just physical, it is energetic. Edgar Cayce spoke of the currents of vital force that sustain the body. When the spirit begins to withdraw, these currents, once weakened, reorganize for an instant, allowing a brief harmony between the planes. It is like the last chord of a song that, as it echoes, still vibrates in the air even after the sound fades. The deathbed rally is that chord, a last gesture of balance before eternal silence. There is something profoundly human about this experience. Even those who do not believe in an afterlife feel that there is something there that medicine does not explain. How to understand the serene gaze of someone who knows they are leaving, and yet is filled with peace? How to explain the sudden lucidity of someone who had not spoken for days? Perhaps the mystery of the deathbed rally is, in fact, a reminder that consciousness is not confined to the brain. It is the invisible field that sustains life, and when the body is exhausted, it simply expands. Imagine a flame inside a lamp. When the oil runs out, the flame does not die. It merely returns to the air. So too is the soul. The deathbed rally is the moment when the flame realizes it is about to break free from the lamp and shines a little brighter before joining the greater light. There is no suffering in this moment, only the lightness of a cycle being completed. But why does this rally touch us so deeply? Perhaps because it reveals, even if for brief moments, the true face of the human soul. The one that does not fear the end, because it knows that the end is just a word invented by the living. In the heart of the dying, there is an understanding not learned from books, the certainty that love does not die. That consciousness is eternal, and that returning is just a way of remembering who we always were. For those who remain, this moment can be confusing. The heart fills with hope. He's getting better. And shortly after comes the silence. But if we look with different eyes, we will realize that the deathbed rally is not a deception. It is a revelation. It is the spirit showing that it is at peace. It is the universe saying all is well. There is no error, no chance, no cruelty. There is only a gentle transition, a last breath of light before the crossing. Edgar Cayce believed that the purpose of life is the growth of the soul, and that death is just the passage to another stage of this learning. The rally that precedes departure is the reflection of this maturation. The moment when the spirit, freed from resistance, accepts the continuity of existence. Perhaps that is why so many accounts describe a serene joy, a sense of freedom. It is as if the soul says, "Now I remember who I am." And perhaps deep down, this is what the deathbed rally teaches us, not to fear the end, but to recognize the miracle of each transition. Because if there is a glow before departure, it is because the light never goes out. There is an ancient wisdom hidden in this moment of clarity that precedes death, a wisdom that seems to come not from the human mind, but from a deeper place, where the spirit speaks without words. Edgar Cayce described this moment as a tuning of vibrations, where body and soul achieve a brief attunement, a point of harmony before separation. It is as if the universe, in its infinite compassion, grants the soul one last opportunity to integrate all it has experienced. The joys, the pains, the losses, and the loves. In this silent integration, the human being becomes complete. Therefore, paradoxically, many dying individuals seem more alive in this instant than in many days of health. Perhaps this is one of the keys to understanding the mystery. The deathbed rally is not an anomaly, but a process of inner enlightenment. It is like the gleam of gold that emerges when the fire of time has consumed all impurities. As the body approaches its limit, the ego, with its fears, attachments, and defenses, weakens, and what remains is the essence. The spirit, unburdened by the mind's barriers, reveals a clarity that we rarely experience during life. Many describe this moment as seeing everything differently, understanding the meaning of things, or simply feeling at peace. It is curious to think that at the exact moment the body most approaches its end, consciousness seems to expand. Cayce affirmed that the human energetic field, the aura, begins to detach from the physical body hours before death, raising its frequency. It is this elevation that generates the sensation of lightness and lucidity. The person, still embodied, is already in contact with more subtle dimensions of existence. This is why some seem to see deceased loved ones, describe luminous landscapes, or converse with invisible presences. These are not delusions. They are spiritual perceptions of a spirit already crossing the threshold between planes. If we observe with sensitivity, we will perceive that the environment also changes. The air seems lighter, time slows down, and there is a vibration of tenderness in the space. It is as if nature recognizes the sacred rite of passage, and for a moment, everything gathers in reverence. Some Eastern traditions teach that at this instant, subtle portals open to facilitate the transition. Cayce, in his readings, said that angels of light, beings of higher vibration, assist in this process, enveloping the spirit with peace so it does not fear detachment. The rally, therefore, is the presence of these loving forces acting invisibly. Imagine a butterfly inside its cocoon. For long days it lives there in darkness, dissolving completely until only fragments of what it was remain. But there is a moment, the instant before flight, when the butterfly senses the air outside. It hasn't left yet, but already feels the call of the sky. The deathbed rally is that instant. The soul, still enveloped by the body, feels the call of freedom, and it responds to it with a light that manifests in the gaze, in the voice, in the smile, even when the body is fragile. This vision completely changes how we view departure. It is not a defeat, it is a coronation. It is the closing of a cycle of learning. Cayce said that each incarnation is a lesson, and that the soul, upon leaving the body, reviews everything it has lived with love and understanding. The rally is the prelude to this review, a rehearsal of the expansion of consciousness that will follow soon after. This is why so many report seeing flashes of their life, feeling sudden gratitude, or having the impulse to ask for forgiveness and reconcile. The soul is clearing the path, preparing to move on lightly. And there is something profoundly beautiful in this process. It reveals that love is the only force that crosses the boundary between worlds. Even when the body no longer responds, love still acts, between what departs and what remains. This is why so many families perceive an inexplicable calm at this moment. It is as if the very environment is filled with a loving energy, a sense of blessing. It is not imagination. It is the echo of the spirit bidding farewell in peace. The ancient Egyptians called this moment the return of the flame. For them, the soul was a spark of the divine sun that, upon completing its journey on earth, reignited in pure light. Cayce, similarly, spoke of returning to the source. The rally is the reflection of this imminent return. It is the sun's glow reflecting for the last time on the waters before disappearing over the horizon. That is why many people describe this moment as a presence of light, something not seen but felt. And curiously, this phenomenon does not occur only in those who are about to die. In near-death experiences, there are identical reports, a sudden feeling of well-being, lightness, clarity. The physical body may be on the verge of collapse, but consciousness feels free, lucid, and at peace. It is the same mechanism in action, the spirit moving away from the body, experiencing reality beyond matter. The deathbed rally, then, is the same portal, only crossed definitively. But there is something even more subtle. This phenomenon also teaches those who remain. It teaches that death is not an enemy but a teacher. That suffering, however painful, is always a means of purification. And that true healing sometimes does not happen in the body but in the soul. When someone departs with serenity, they transmit a silent message to everyone around. There is no reason to fear. Everything continues. And this message, if embraced, transforms grief into gratitude. Cayce believed that understanding death is understanding life itself. For both are faces of the same mystery, the continuous flow of existence that renews itself in infinite forms. The rally before departure is a reminder of this flow, a divine whisper saying, "Life does not end, it merely changes its tune." It is the moment when the spirit, even bound to the body, hears the melody of the infinite and begins to dance with it. Perhaps for this reason, this phenomenon inspires so much fascination and reverence. It shows us with a clarity that no doctrine could offer that we are more than flesh and thought. We are presence, we are energy in transit. And when the body bows before death, the soul rises before eternity, ready for the reunion with the light from which it once came. There is an instant, right after this mysterious rally, when something silently begins to change. The body stills, the gaze becomes distant, and a deep serenity envelops the environment. It is as if the soul, having recognized the call, begins to loosen the ties that bind it to matter. Edgar Cayce said that the transition between worlds is not an abrupt break, but a gentle untying, guided by loving intelligences who know the rhythm of each being. Just as the birth of a child requires time, so does dying. A sacred work is underway, invisible yet perceptible to those who observe with an awakened heart. In this stage, the spirit is divided between two planes. Part of it still feels the body, the touch, the sound of loved ones' voices. Another part already senses the vast luminous silence of the other side. It is a liminal state, the point where the visible and the invisible touch. Cayce described this phase as the moment of conscious detachment, when the soul begins to recall its true nature. Many people, even in their last moments, utter words that sound strange to listeners, but are deeply revealing. "They came for me. It's all right now. There's so much light." These are phrases that carry the wisdom of those who see beyond what the living see. The deathbed rally, then, is not merely a physiological phenomenon. It is a kind of preparatory blessing. The spirit, feeling lighter, perceives that it is about to return to its origin, and the body, recognizing this movement, surrenders. There is a mutual understanding, a silent alliance between matter and soul. It is like the moment when a bird, after long resisting the open cage door, finally realizes it can fly. It hesitates for an instant, but freedom calls it. And when it flaps its wings, there is no more fear. Death seen in this light loses its tragic aspect. It becomes a natural passage, as much a part of life as birth. Cayce affirmed that humanity's error lies in fearing the return, when in fact, we should understand it as a new beginning. He said that the soul never dies, it only changes its expression. The rally that precedes death is, therefore, the first glimmer of this new expression. The moment when the soul, still enveloped in the body, begins to vibrate at the frequency from which it came. And there is something profoundly compassionate in this preparation. Many family members report that during these hours of rally, the dying person seems to wait. They wait for someone to arrive, a word to be said, a forgiveness to be granted. It is as if the soul knows there are threads to be untangled before departure. Only then, when everything harmonizes, does it allow itself to leave. Cayce explained this as the soul's impulse for completeness. Before crossing over, it seeks to conclude its cycles with love. This search is so powerful that sometimes the body responds with momentary vitality, the last effort to be present, to look into eyes, to say, "I love you." At this point, love governs everything. It is the force that guides the crossing, the invisible thread that connects both sides. And perhaps that is why those around also feel the presence of the sacred. The air seems to vibrate with tenderness. Time seems to suspend. It is love in its purest form, without desire, without possession, without fear, acting as a bridge between worlds. When Cayce spoke of the light of the Christ within, he referred precisely to this, the vibration of universal love that sustains every passage. The rally is the reflection of that light. But there is also a lesson for those who remain. To see someone rally and then depart is an experience that confuses the human heart. The mind tries to understand, but the mystery cannot be confined to words. And yet, if we look with the eyes of the soul, we will realize that nothing was in vain. The rally is a sign that the process was guided, that the spirit fulfilled its role, that the farewell was blessed. When someone departs like this, in peace after a brief awakening, they leave a field of harmonious energy around them. This vibration remains for days, sometimes for a lifetime, as a subtle reminder that love remains present. Cayce said that the spirit, in the first moments after leaving the body, remains close to loved ones, observing, blessing, and trying to transmit calm. It is like a mother who, before letting her child fall asleep, still adjusts the blanket and kisses their forehead. That is why many people report feeling the presence of the deceased shortly after their departure. A scent, a gentle touch, a sensation of warmth. It is not imagination. It is the soul saying, "I am still here, but in a different way." There is an indescribable beauty in this movement. It is the moment when love expands beyond the limits of the flesh. And, by understanding this, grief transforms. It ceases to be an emptiness and becomes a channel. Pain, when accepted, converts into devotion, devotion to memory, to gratitude, to the bond that does not break. Cayce often said that there is no separation between those who love each other in spirit. What dies is physical contact. What remains is attunement. And the more the heart vibrates with love, the stronger this attunement becomes. The deathbed rally, then, is also a mirror for the living. It invites us to look at our own lives with different eyes. If the spirit in dying finds clarity and serenity, why do we wait until the end to seek them? The same light that illuminates the soul at the hour of departure can be accessed now, while we still breathe. We can learn to die before death, to let go of what no longer serves, to release fears, to accept the flow. This is the true spiritual teaching behind the phenomenon. Cayce believed that every transition, from childhood to maturity, from pain to healing, from ignorance to wisdom, is a small death. And in all of them, there is a rally that precedes rebirth. Just as the spirit shines before leaving the body, we also shine before crossing any transformation. This shine is the sign that something within us has been liberated. Physical death is merely the last of these liberations, the broadest, the most serene, the most luminous. And that is why when we observe someone rally before departing, we should see there not an enigma, but a revelation, the silent testimony that the soul is eternal and death merely a return. For that which is made of light never goes out. It only changes form and continues to shine elsewhere. And then the instant arrives that no human gaze can follow. The body falls silent, the chest rests, time suspends. But in the silence that settles, something vibrates. It is not sound, it is not air, it is a presence. It is the soul crossing the threshold, completing what began when the rally brought the light of consciousness. Edgar Cayce said that this moment is the spirit's reunion with its origin, the return to the source. Death for him was not a fall, but an awakening. And when the soul awakens, it realizes it was never separate from the whole, only dreaming for a time in the world of form. For those observing from outside, this instant may seem like the end, but for those departing, it is the beginning of an expansion. Cayce described that immediately after the transition, the soul reviews its life as one contemplates a river from its source to the sea. It sees the pains, the mistakes, the loves, and the simple gestures that transformed the course of the journey. But there is no judgment. There is only understanding. The soul sees itself as part of a great symphony, each note necessary, each pause essential. In this first contact with the light, it understands that nothing was in vain. Everything was learning, everything was love, even what once seemed like suffering. And it is at this point that the phenomenon of the deathbed rally reveals its greater purpose. It is the harbinger of this illumination. It is the sign that the soul has already begun to awaken even before leaving the body. The twinkle in the eyes, the sudden serenity, the inexplicable lucidity, all these are reflections of consciousness expanding. It is the spirit that, upon touching the dimension of truth again, allows this light to shine through for those who are still bound by time. It is a reminder that life continues, and that death is merely a change of direction on the path of eternity. Many who have witnessed this process describe something in common, a feeling of peace so profound that it seems to come from outside the world. It is an energy that envelops the environment, a loving quietness. Some feel as if the air is full of presence, and perhaps it is. Cayce said that the moment of death is accompanied by beings of light, guides, spiritual friends, masters, who welcome the soul with tenderness. They do not come to judge but to remind the soul who it is, where it came from, and where it returns. It is the great embrace of the invisible, and paradoxically, it is at this moment that the lives of those who remain also begin to change. Because the death of a loved one calls us to reflect on what truly matters. The deathbed rally, when understood, teaches something about living itself. It teaches that we do not need to wait for the last breath to find peace. That final glow, that of the soul setting itself free, can be sought now, while the eyes still see and the heart still beats. We can live in such a way as to die less to fear, to pride, to haste. We can prepare not for the end, but for the return. Cayce believed that the purpose of life is the awakening of the spirit within matter, and that every experience, however difficult, is an opportunity to remember the greater truth. We are eternal consciousnesses, expressing ourselves for a brief time through a body. When we understand this, death loses its power to frighten us. We become like the traveler who, at the end of the journey, recognizes the way back and smiles. Because home is not a place, it is a state of soul. And that is why so many spiritual traditions describe death as going home. The body returns to the earth, the breath returns to the wind, and the spirit returns to the light. The rally before departure is the sign of this return in progress. It is as if the soul says without words, I am ready to go back. There is a tenderness in this readiness, a silent trust. It is the recognition that the universe is safe, that existence is continuous, that love is the substance of everything. But the deepest teaching of this phenomenon may not only be in understanding what happens to those who depart, but also in how it transforms us, those who remain. The deathbed rally invites us to review our own way of living. It asks us, have you lived in such a way that you can depart in peace? Not as a gloomy warning, but as a call to authenticity. Because living with consciousness is preparing every day for the return. There is nothing morbid about it. On the contrary, it is liberating. When we accept that we are temporary travelers, every moment becomes sacred. Edgar Cayce said that the fear of death is, in reality, the fear of not having lived fully. When we love, when we forgive, when we serve, when we seek truth, death loses its grim face. It becomes merely a transition of stage. And perhaps the secret lies in living in such a way that when the time comes, we too can experience our own deathbed rally. This state of serenity and clarity that arises when the heart is already reconciled with life. Perhaps this is the great message hidden behind the phenomenon. The rally is not the harbinger of death. It is the harbinger of liberation. It is the sign that the spirit is ready to cross the portal without fear. And if we understand this, we can view each departure with less despair and more reverence. Because what is fulfilled there is a sacred rite, a movement of return to the origin. The soul merely changes its frequency, like a melody that, although it ceases on one instrument, continues to vibrate in the air. And so Cayce's teaching becomes not just an explanation of death, but an instruction for life. It invites us to awaken while there is still time, to illuminate the spirit while the body still breathes. Because the same light that shines in the last hours can shine now if only we make space for it. It is the light of understanding, of acceptance, of trust in the flow of existence. May each of us learn from this mystery not only how to die well, but how to live with more truth. May we know how to find serenity in the small daily farewells, because every end contains a beginning. And may, when our time comes, we too be able to offer those we love this same gift, the tranquil gaze, the gentle smile, the silent rally that announces not the end, but the return to the light. And if this message touched something in you, share your experience. Talk in the comments about what you feel when you think about death and the continuity of life. May this conversation become a space of welcome, where fear transforms into understanding and silence into peace. And if you wish to continue on these reflections, subscribe to the channel. There is still much light to be unveiled, and the soul's path is infinite.